So welcome to, I believe this is the 7th webinar of 15EW5. We are now going to be reviewing for the second exam. This exam will cover the stuff from Module 3 and Module 4. I hadn't seen what you wrote down here, Don. Hang on. Well, your hope has, your prayers there have been answered. There will not be any of those. I think we sort of agreed that the empirical rule and Chebysky's, and I think I say it wrong, those rules are really a little bit more for the math 240. Okay, so good. Then I think you're on the same page. All right, so starting out here just with some tips for success. I'm sure you guys found out last exam that you actually need to round to the places that they tell you to. I think on the first take, many of my students didn't think that it really seriously mattered whether or not they rounded to the 1 or 2, or if they rounded, or so that's a really big thing to think about. All right, in general, if you were to sit down to take this and have uninterrupted time, I would think if you were truly prepared, it would probably take you a little under 2 hours. I like to give myself a 2-hour mark so that if I need to do it, I can actually deal with that. If you're using StatCrunch, it shouldn't take you a full 2 hours. If you're not using StatCrunch at all, you're doing everything by hand, it will take you quite a bit longer. Just a reminder that you can leave the exam and come back to it. Until you hit that submit button on the bottom right, you are allowed to go back and change your answers. Okay, and I also think having a quiet, undisturbed area to take your exam is really, really important. So if there's any way you can squirrel away that kind of a, duty-free, kid-free, whatever, phone-free time, that would probably be to your benefit. And the second exam is due prior to midnight. I know some instructors, but not all, will give more than one take. So you would have to check with your instructor to see what your situation is. You should also make sure, if you do have more than one take, that you review your exam prior to trying to take it again. All right, so be organized. Keep your notes and book and exam. Your book is probably online. And your exam review handy. I find people try to flip through things and then they get really upset and they just kind of tank it. So that's not what you want to be doing. If you are going to use a calculator, make sure you have it there. You have it handy as well. Probably with fresh batteries in it, that would be helpful. And I think the bottom thing I have to say is you need to read the question. You need to read it again. You need to read it at the end to make sure that you actually have rounded to the correct decimal places. You've actually answered the question that they've asked. I have many students who will give the predicted value instead of the residual at the end. So I always make sure to go back and look those over. And remember that, take your time. You don't have to be done with this in 20 minutes and then move on. So instead of a slideshow, I have a document here that I'm sharing with you, and I have a brand new tool here, my Wacom, I think is what it's called. I'm going to try to write on top of this. Hopefully you don't make too much fun of my penmanship. And this way, if you'd like to, I'll make sure that I give Audrey a copy of what this is, these sheets here, so that you have them, so that if you want to download it or look it over again, you can. Or, of course, you can just watch the recording at the end. Now, this is a great section for having to take information and move it from one spot, StatCrunch, to another. And though I'm not able to do this online, I do this in my face-to-face class. I think someone in my class told me how to do this. Right here at the bottom, I basically have a split screen where I have StatCrunch on one side and then I have MyMathLab on the other. And what I do is I just get into my StatCrunch scene, and then I hit the little window key that kind of looks like this guy in the bottom. Mine's like black and white. If I hit that and hit the left directional, I'll have my StatCrunch show up on the left. Then when I get on the MyMathLab piece, I hit that. Same little thing, but it's on my keyboard. And then I go to the right, and that way I have them both side by side. And that way I'm not flicking back and forth. That's something for me. I tend to get a little dyslexic by the end of the day, so having to recopy all those numbers can be a little bit daunting for me. So are you guys all ready to go over this? Yeah? Good? All right. All right, so it looks like we got everything we need. I'm just going to switch to the other page. I'm sure that you guys have gotten this by now. Why do I? There we go. I believe most of the instructors have this. They've probably posted it or sent it to you, posted it in the discussion board, or they have sent it to you via an announcement or an email. But again, this is part of this. You should be able to download this later on. So does everybody have a copy of this? Did everyone get a copy similar to this for the first exam? Okay, so well, Pamela and Scott, you know that it's up here. What you actually can do is if you look at the older web recordings, it's usually there. You can download it from that, just so that you know. Or something that you can request of your instructor to say, hey, is that review around? I know sometimes I think I send things out and then I don't, so I apologize. But what's great about this is it has every single problem on the exam. Well, it doesn't have the problem, it has the concepts for what's going to be on the exam. So it says, like, exam for problem number 1, they're just going to ask you to compute the mean. For problem 2, and it keeps going down the list. Sometimes I get on top of that, and it just doesn't cover stuff up, but it'll be okay. And it keeps going down. It tells us in number 10, we start doing stuff from mod 4, and then we're going to end up having 15 questions. So let's see. So, John, if you notice, there will be none of them about the empirical rule on there. So you know for certain you're not going to be asked that. So that's a good thing, huh? Yeah, right. Okay. So I'm just going to keep going back to these problems. And if you would like me to go back and check this over, I will. But I think the things that I'm planning on doing is working through these in StatCrunch, in MyMathLab, and in StatCrunch to show you how to do the problems. So that's the plan. Okay. So I'm just going to get over to I have everything set up, and then it just doesn't want me to do anything. I don't understand this. Here we go. I could have sworn I had opened up my StatCrunch. Sorry, I'm a little embarrassed that I don't have my StatCrunch open. Or I should say, my MathLab. I don't know what happened to that one. There. Okay, so the first question on our list says that we are supposed to be able to find the mean of some values. So I'm going to go back to homework, mod 3. And when you click this, if you already have 100 on this and you don't want to accidentally get a lower score, if you hit the only practice and review, you can go through it, you can check everything that you have there, and then what's going to happen is nothing is going to change. So it's a great way to practice, okay? Just to kind of keeping that out there as an opportunity for you guys. So if you want to end up doing that, no problem. Okay, so here we go. Question number 1. Okay, question number 1 asks us, I'm waiting to see what Dawn has to say. Good, 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 good. All right, so question number 1 asks us to just find the population mean or sample mean. Now, how do we do that? How do we go about finding the sample mean or the population mean? So let's see. Out of the variables, divide by the number in the population. And is it the same for population and sample mean? Yes, it is. It is exactly the same for both of them. So this one doesn't change. So we could just punch those into our calculator, and my problem, I would divide by 4. Okay, so if we click on StatCrunch open up in StatCrunch. What this does for me is it takes a long time because I'll be nervous here that it's taking too long. No, they all come up in variable 1. So I have a list of variables here. What I will press is Stat. I'll go down to Summary Stat over to Column. Now, if maybe I'm finding more than one list, but whatever list I'm looking for, I'm just going to click on it. As long as it shows up on the right side in the white part, then we're good to go. And all they wanted was the mean. So let's just click Mean, and then we're going to click Compute. It tells me my mean is 11, which I probably can remember before I get there. So that would I wouldn't have to really worry too much. I can move this guy over here. Okay. But now the next question is, we can just do this one problem, or we can do everything that happens to be on, we can just kind of go through and see everything that StatCrunch has to offer. And that's what I put on that other sheet. So let me just see what I can do here. Let me now share my document. So what I did was I went ahead and I took something from number 1 and I just put all of the things that you could possibly get from the summary stats. So let me just make this a little bit bigger so we can probably see it. Ooh, that may be too big. Okay, so let's look at these, and I figured if we talk about these now, by the time we get over to the next section, we're not about talking about all these box plots and stuff, we will have discussed it. So N tells you how many are in the sample. The mean is the mean, and this is the mean for a population or for a summary? Is it the same for both of them? Yeah, same for both of them. Let's see if I can draw on this guy. How? Can you not do what I want to do? Actually, John, the mean is the same. Oops, that's okay. Oh, thanks. Let's see what we can get going here. Okay. Now let's try that other guy. See if I can get my pen going here. Pencil. All right, so here, this guy, and that's a little bit too thick. All right. So that's like the X bar, or we can say it's for the, oh my gosh. Ooh. Okay. So that's for X bar. Let's see if I can get the X bar in there. All right, cool. All right. What else is listed there? We have variance and standard deviation. Okay, this is either for the sample or this is for the population. Which one is this? Sample. I try to write that as neatly as I can. Oh, it's not liking me. Well, that's not good looking. Oh, you know, I practiced this, believe it or not, guys. I practiced this a long time today, and I was right. Everything was coming out very nicely. But now, of course, pressure. Sample. Okay. The sample error, that's something that we are not going to use. So let's just make this guy to be black. We're not going to use this thing unless you're later on. We're not going to use unadjusted, nope, the coefficient of variance. And we're not going to use that guy. So we're not interested in those. All right, median. Is there another name for median? Q2. Awesome. So I'll put a Q2 above that if I can try to get it to look like a Q. You guys can all laugh at me. It's okay. I can't hear you. Or you can laugh at me sarcastically through the keyboard, I guess. All right. So Q2. And then we have the range, and the range is the high minus the low. The minimum value, that's the smallest value. The max value, that's the biggest value. Q1, Q3. Q1 is what we call, what's another name for Q1? Another name for Q1? Do you guys know? Really? Q1 is the lower quartile? Is that ringing a bell? And Q3 is the upper quartile? Sometimes they're said that way, just in case it happened to show up. All right, the sum of all the values, the IQR. What is the IQR? It is known as the interquartile range. And let me go what Pamela has to say here. You guys are on the money. Interquartile range. And what it tells you is the distance between Q1 and Q3. So it discusses the middle 50%. And we would want to use the median and the IQR to describe our data if there happens to be, if it's skewed or if there happens to be an outlier, because the median is not affected by outliers, it's resistant. If the data looks fairly symmetric, then I would use the mean and the standard deviation. That'd be cool. All right, so this unadjusted, right here, unadjusted variance and unadjusted standard deviation, what do we use that one for? Populate. Perfect. I'm just going to put down pop. I don't like making O's. Okay. Population, great. All right. So what I did with, I don't think I had exactly the same problem that I did before, but does everybody see how you can just get all the information that you want out of there? I went ahead and I made a box plot just so we could discuss these things. And what I did was I went in, as you can see up here, I went into summary stats and I hit graph and then box plot. And I made sure to check on graph it horizontally and to use fences to indicate outliers. And then I also put in the mean, which is green, and the median, which happens to be in red there. Okay, so let's see. It tells us that the min is 4. So what does the min show up as on my picture here, on my graph? Actually, no, the lower fence is something a little bit different. The lower fence is Q1, take away 1.5 times the IQR. Okay, you meant the whisker. Yeah, the tip of the whisker all the way in the side. So I'm going to point to that. So right here, this value right here, that's going to be your X min. X min. Oh, that is really not doing the justice here. Okay, well, that's going to have to be. All right, how about where would Q1 be? Would Q1 be the left side or the right side, or what's going on? Yep, Q1 is this guy right here, the left side of your rectangle. So, and then we already know what the median is. This is the median. We could call that guy Q2 if we wanted. And then where would Q3 be? The right side. And this particular one doesn't have another whisker. We only had such a small amount of data. If this had another guy sticking off here, then at the end we would have had the X max. But it just so happened we don't have a lot of data. Just happened that Q3 happened to have the same value as the X max. Okay. Well, those are important things to know. If on your box plot, and we'll see these when we get there, if you actually were not on a copy of it, but if you were in StatCrunch and you put your cursor on here, it would tell you what these values were. So that's pretty cool. All right. I also did one for the next graph, which is pretty similar. Okay, push it up. Let's go. Boy, this does not want to pay attention to me today. Okay, We can go over this one too, or do you guys think that you've got the kind of information down? All they wanted in problem number 3 was to find the mean, the range, and the median. So we can go over this one if you would like to do it some more, or do you guys think you have that down? Would you like us to dissect this one as well? That's the question. Okay, don't you mean you're okay with going over this or all set with this one? Oh. Well, we're going to hit some of the stuff again anyway, but okay, all set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the homework here. Okay, I think 3 was the next one we wanted. So we'll just do that one real fast without actually doing all of the stuff. So I'll just do a similar exercise. So in this one, it asks for us to repair the cost of each of the 4 crashes. So notice they have the little icon here, and what that icon lets me do is open in StatCrunch. And now I'm going to press Stat, Summary Stat, over to Columns. Select the variables are all in that first column, so variable 1. I'm going to click on the mean, and if I want to click on something else without having this disappear, I have to press down the Control key first, then it will show up, and then if I keep the Control key down, I'll have the 3 things that I'm looking for. Then I can press Compute, and I'll move it over here so that I'll be able to see it, and then I did not be able to see it. And that way I can enter in the value that I need right there. So the mean cost, and it says round to the nearest cent. Since it does have, it only has a 5, what else should I put in here? Does it have a nearest cent in there? What do you guys think? In this case, I would put down 50 cents. There's no need to add extra numbers, but go ahead, let me hear what you guys have to say. Good. Use the 5. I don't have to put in a 0. Yeah. So you don't need to invent more numbers. If there's not enough numbers, that's okay. You just put, if there's to the nearest cent would normally mean 2 decimal places, but since they only gave me 1 decimal place, that's okay. I wouldn't need to put in any more values there. And same thing for the median. I would just say 418.5. And here it tells me that the range is 291. I didn't even have to round that one at all. There were no cents. Oh, did I type it in wrong? Oh, okay, got to be like, Mill, can you read? Remember I said read, 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 and I didn't read. All right, so here I went and did a mistake. I accidentally found the range. That's not what it's looking for. So instead of doing everything all over, if I hit Options and Edit, I can go just change that range. We'll just add on, what did it say, mode, and mode's all the way at the bottom. So I'm going to hit Control, hit the mode, go back over to Compute, and it says no unique mode. So that tells me that I actually want to click on that second part. All right, so everybody's good with that? That one was pretty easy. All right. The next problem, I believe, was 7. I don't have my sheet in front of me. Okay, I think it was 5. In this question, they are going to ask us to sort of describe the shape of the distribution directly, because they ask us to describe the center. The center is the mean if the data appears to be symmetric, and the center would be the median if the shape appears to either be, skewed left, skewed right, outliers, that kind of stuff. Okay, so in this one, do I want to click? I clicked median. What was that? obviously a good choice. I got a green check. Why was this a median? Could you guys describe the shape of the distribution for me? It's skewed left. Great. You guys remembered that if most of the data appears on the right and just a bit of data appears on the left, that's where the tail would be. So you always want to describe the skew in terms of where the tail would be. Skewed left. Good job. Okay. Okay, I think 7 was the next one that I was going to do. Okay. Now, in 7, if you remember, you just had to kind of get this data together. You had to make this picture real fast, this histogram. Do you guys remember how to do that one? How do you actually create a histogram given raw data, not grouped data? Graph and then histogram. Good. Is that what you were going to say, Dawn? Graph, go down to histogram. You're going to click on var 1. Yep. Okay. I'd like to put the mean and the median. You know, I always like a little bit of color, so I like to have that in there. This is going to be a frequency kind of chart, so I'm going to press compute. One of the reasons why I like to put, and notice when I'm on this, I have green is the mean and red is the median, and they are fairly close. Okay, so I would say that this data appears to be rather symmetric. Usually if things are perfectly symmetric, then we would be expecting our mean, median, mode to all be on the same line. So people are like, oh, but no, it's definitely higher here than it is on the other side, and I do realize that happens, but really we're kind of looking for an overall feel more than for an absolute precision piece, so kind of keep that one in mind. All right, so when we go to check this against the other ones, a lot of students have a hard time adjusting their picture to this, so I tell them you can either make this guy a little bit smaller, or you can make these guys a little bit bigger. And just upon looking real fast, I'm going to say C looks pretty good. What do you guys think? Look at this C for that. Yep. All right. And if you're not sure, again, it's a little more squat, you can just press this guy. And now that the pictures are pretty close to the same size, I'd have to say I think we got the right one. Okay. Okay, and we already said that it was a bit kind of symmetric. I think, does everybody have that idea down of how to figure out if it's symmetric or not? I really liked having the lines in there. If the green line was really being drawn down this way, and there was a bigger gap, I think it would be telling me that it was skewed left or skewed right. Okay, so symmetric. Okay, the mean number of hours. So we're just going to come back up here. Actually, do we have to even go back up there? I got the mean right off of here. The mean is 17.5333. So if I want to round this to 3 decimal places, I think I would just not round up. Did everybody see how I did that? Right on this graph, I got on the green line, and it told me the mean. I didn't have anything else to do. Oh, I'm glad. I think I was watching Naveed's review from last time. I didn't even know that. I knew it was on there, but I hadn't really ever hung out on top of those colored lines. Okay, the next one's going to ask me for the median. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so we'll get up on that line. It's 19 on the nose. Notice how for this one, they didn't tell me that I had to round it or anything. So sometimes that's a hint for you. Okay, so now it comes down to this. Which measure of central tendency are we going to use? The mean, the mode, or the median? Okay, well, one person says median, one person says mode. I mean, excuse me, median, one person says mean. 2 people say mean. Oh, 3 people say me, and Dawn, you sound like you're a little bit outvoted here. Are you sticking to your guns, or do you think they're right? Yeah, thank you. Robert, thanks, Dawn, for correcting yourself there. And Robert, you did a great job. Metric, we want to use the mean and the standard deviation. That's always our hope. Our hope is to always use the mean and standard deviation. And then if it ends up that the data is skewed, then the mean would be not resistant to that skewness. So it will be like brought down, it would appear to be lower, where the median would be a better descriptor of the central tendency. Right. Okay, let's put that mean in there. And so everybody's good with that then. So because I'm in this particular mode, even if I had gotten this wrong before, I'm not going to get it correct now because I'm just in the review mode. But it seems like I'm doing the same thing as I did before. Okay, number 8 is that long question where you had to find the mean, median, mode of a bunch of things, and then you had to compare what was happening at the end. So they will be asking you to do one like that. Shall we go over this one, or you guys kind of have the idea of that number 8 down? I'll leave that one up to you. That's one if we have time we can come back for. Okay. All right. So I'm going to look back at, let me see where I want to be here. Let me just look back at my little handout here. Okay, so that was number 3. We've done that one. Let's see the next page. That was 7. Okay. Oh, in 7, I did one that was similar to this. I also did the box plot. And sometimes for box plot, one moment, please. And sometimes in the box plot, the shape is a lot more apparent for people because you can see that the whiskers are about the same length. The red bar is pretty much in the middle of that rectangle, so that kind of helps that out as well. Okay, I'd have to say number 15 was the question when I was an instructor that really had people not too happy about. So shall we go over a question like 15? Does that one sound like a good plan for you guys? Yes. Okay. So I copied over the question that I had, and this is one that StatCrunch will not help you with. This is one that you definitely need to have a calculator handy. Okay, so in this one, they tell you how a person did, what grade they got. We're only using A, B, C, Ds, and Fs. We're not using pluses or minuses. So an A is worth 4, and a D is worth 1 in this problem. A B is worth 3, and a C is worth 2. So when I'm thinking about this one, what I want to do is I want to weight each of the credit hours. The way I weight it is by multiplying it by the value of the grade. I then divide it by the total number of credit hours in the class. So let's see how this one's going to work. All right, so I'm going to come back over here to my pencil. And let's find that numerator. So what are we going to do first? Well, the first thing is, and I'm not look like I'm doing as good with my, let's say D times 5. That's actually a times there. Okay, then I'm going to add to this. How much is the A worth again? Yes, A is worth 4. Then I'm going to have plus D times 4 plus A times 1. So what do you think? What do you think the average is going to be? The GPA, I should say. They got some A's, so are those A's going to help this person get a pretty high GPA, or did those D's really bring them down? They're in trouble. I think they're in trouble. It depends. Like if I don't know, if mom and dad are just paying for everything, I guess they can get what they want. But if they have to keep a certain cume, they might have a problem. Okay. So what I'm going to do now that I wrote this out, I'm sorry that it's sloppy, but I think this is the best we can do. I'm not going to write out what's 1 times 5. That's 5. And what 4 times 3 is 12. And then if somebody could be adding this up as I go along to tell me the total sum, I'd appreciate it. 1 times 4 is 4. And then 4 times 1 is 4. What'd you guys get? 17, 21, 25? Okay. So that's my numerator. Put that guy down here at 25. All right. Now let's change color for our denominator. Okay, so the denominator, what I do for the denominator is I just take all of the hours, and I'm going to add those together. So I'm going to get 5 plus 3 plus 4 plus 1, and that is 13. Oh, you saved me. Okay, now all I need is for somebody to tell me what is 25 divided by 13. Ooh, a 1 point, was it, John, was it more than 1.92? Can we have just a couple more decimal places so we can practice our rounding? .92307. And I think if I look back, I think they only wanted this one to 1 decimal place. I don't remember. Let's say they said 1 decimal place. What would you give them? $1.9. Awesome. If they had said 2 decimal places, I would have said 1.92. Okay. So this is just under a C. So this would be considered like a C minus range. Okay. So that sound all right with everybody? Does that help explain what you're supposed to do? I think this is one of those when you actually see it done out, it's like, oh yeah, that's what I would have done. Okay, I went on and masked a couple of different things on the next page. Some people, when I'm grading these, some people tell me somehow they added things up wrong, and in the problem that they had, they might end up with like an 8.7. The highest you can go is a 4, so make sure you don't put down something ridiculous. I asked a question that you should always check the reasonability. Can the GPA be higher than a 4? No, and it can't be negative. Even though if somebody fails everything, you want that to be negative, it just zeroes the lowest it goes. So if a person mostly got B's, would it make sense for them to get a 4.0 as a GPA? Yeah, no. And it wouldn't make any sense for it to be really low, like a 1.7. And I said mostly B's. Well, let's see, is there a difference? So I just put this little guy together here. Oops. I put this little guy here together with the idea of, well, here's a person who got 3 A's and a D. Another person who got 3 A's and a D. But the D was worth 5 credit hours in the last one. So do you think that's going to impact the GPA a lot? What do you guys think? Okay, so let's see. This is going to be, if we're thinking about the numerator, is it okay if we just multiply some stuff together? Oh, why is it? Okay, so let's get our numerator going. Over here with my pencil. Let me get green again. So over here for a numerator, I'm going to get, let's see, 4 times 5 is 20. Does everybody see why I'm getting a 20? And I'm going to add to that an A in a 4 credit class would be a 4 times 4, so that's 16. And then an A in a 3 credit class, that would be 4 times 3, that would be 12. And then a D in a 1 credit class is a 1 times 1, that's a 1. So let's see if someone could sum that up for me. 49. Okay, so what are we going to do for our denominator? are going to just add up all of the credit hours. So here we go. 4 plus 5 is 9, plus 3 plus 1. Did somebody write it down for me? 13. Oh, whoa, number 13. Okay. All right, and then somebody go ahead and do the division. 49 divided by 13 is 3. Okay, you're just going to round for me? That's okay. Oh, thanks, Robert. You went to the 2 decimal places, which I can see what Dawn had was 769. So great job. 3.77. Okay. How about the numerator in this one? Actually, my color is red, so I'm just going to do the denominator here first. 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 5. 17, thank you. That's my denominator. And what's the numerator going to be? So the 20, 16, 12 are going to be the same. So the 20, change to green. The 20 plus 12. This time now, not plus 1, but D is 1, and times 5 is 5. What did you guys get? 68? I think it was 53, Dawn. Check that one again. Because that's 36 plus 17. That'd be 53. All right. What happened here? Did somebody going to give me the division? Well, not as hard as me with this writing business, but that's okay. So you get 3.117, so 3.12 if we had to round it. So wow, look at that. Someone's like, I got 3 A's and a D. It would really matter what they got the D in, because the D in the second one, it has a much higher rate. It's weighted more, so it brought down that average a lot. So keep that one in mind. Does that sound okay to everybody? All right. Let's look at the next page. Okay, now we got to get to number 18. Number 18 is going to ask you to compare these. You're going to have to compare. These ones are not exactly side by side. They're up and down. But they're going to ask you to compare these two. Is everybody able to write off what what's the word here? 5 number summary. There we go. Yes, Dawn says yes. Is everybody else can just looking at the picture, boom, just rattle them off? Yes. Okay. So you guys know and I think they say usually they're integers. So what you're looking for is, they said what is the X-Men, you're going to just kind of come on down here and you're going to have to say it's about 32, that kind of a thing. That's what we're looking for there. Okay. So what they're going to do is they're going to give you one of these, and then they're going to give you choices of a 5 number summary. Okay, so does everybody think that they could go from here? So let's go ahead for X. Why don't you tell me what you think the 5 number summary would be? So for X, how about if we actually put the letter X in there? That would be helpful. X. What's going to be the X-min? What do you guys think? I thought 30, assuming, and we're just going to have to wing it a little bit more. I'm going to have to say a little bit more than 30 from the way I'm looking at it. So let's say 32, but you were on the right mark there, so we'll put 30. And then what about Q1? Let's see, Q1, that's the left side of the rectangle. That one looks like it's coming down just about there. So what do you think? We're going to have to take a little 58. I'm going to go with the 58. And if this was me on the exam, I would have an index card that I would be pushing down towards that, just so that my lines are better. The median is coming down just about at 60. What do you think, 61? I'm saying 60. You're eyeballing it. Yeah, I am too. So no sweat. And then how about Q3 is coming down probably 62, 63. I'll say 63. I'm going to put spaces in here just so it's easy to read, but you don't need to put spaces in on my method. And then the X max is going to come all the way down here, and that one looks like just about, is that 90? So that's going to be like 80. Yes, I think even on the quiz itself, I think it's assuming it's an integer, otherwise it just gets too difficult. I'm going to say yes. We're going to go to the nearest integer. So I'm going to put down that 88. Okay. I think it's the ones that they have, they're about this. But, let me put it this way, Dawn. They are going to give you 4 choices. They're going to have choice like A, choice B, choice C, choice D. And that way, you have to look at it and say, wow, which one matches up? Usually, I just start from the left-hand side. Does it have the correct X-min? Does it have the correct Q1? Does it have the correct Q2? And I just go on that way and see if it keeps matching. And things just keep dropping off on the wayside. So though you're going to have to guess a little, they give you choices. So it's not going to be quite as bad. So does that make everybody feel a bit better? Okay. All right, so the next part, the next question they said was, this might be a little bit, figured we could look at this one too, unless you guys think you got this part down. Do you want to try to find the 5-number summary, or you guys have it totally down? We can move on to the next thing. Well, how about, it is 8:47, so maybe we're going to have this, we can go on a little bit longer. You got that. Good. Okay. So in these ones, you just would have to put it, well, how would you describe this? Look at number 3. How would you describe the data? Is it symmetric, skewed left, skewed right? We're just looking at number 3. Skewed right. You guys are awesome. Perfect. And the next one would be symmetric. I know you guys got that. So I just pulled this one out off of page 179 from the text. So you should be able to look at, here's another one, 5 and 6. They were just side-by-side ones asking you to judge what you thought things were going to be. And the answers are in the back of the book, so that's always a good one to look at too. And then in number 20, it's again asking you for a box plot, and it's asking you whether it's symmetric or not. I think there's a whole slew of questions, like handies or something like that on that one. And then you're supposed to tell me what the 5-number summary is. You can make the box plot, and you can actually get your thing on each one of those. It's totally up to you. All right. So we're going to move on then to number 4. So while grading these, I give back, it's not letting me make this guy go back up. When I make the comments, you guys get comments on your exams, right? Usually the instructors are like, good job, or you might want to look over number 7 again, try to keep that question going and that kind of stuff. Look back over the definition, those kinds of things. Okay, here you go, Rob, because you haven't done this part yet. Okay, remember, in Mod 4 is where we begin our discussion about paired data. It's no longer just a list of one piece. And really what we're looking for in this paired data is we want to know if there is a linear relationship between them. Would a line be a good way to describe the data? Okay, so I've heard people say it's a perfect line. And in my mind, a line is a line is a line is a line. They're all straight. But really what they're saying is when they're perfect line, that means you can draw one line and it goes through all of the points on your scatter plot. So I would say these points are collinear. Notice that its correlation coefficient is 1. Because as I move to the right, all of my points are moving up. Here, these points are also collinear. They lie on one line. But since as I move to the right, the points are moving down, I would say this is a negative relationship. I have a -1 here. So R goes from -1 all the way up to 1. So we go from some collinear points to the collinear points in the other direction. Now, what I tell my classes when they're looking at these, when I'm teaching face-to-face, I'm like, you're supposed to sit back and like have your hand on your chin and go, how close are those guys to a line? And you're supposed to kind of have a feel that this one still looks pretty linear. I can get a line that's pretty close to all the points. It's not going to pass through all of them, but it will be close. Notice that its correlation coefficient is 0.9. It's positive. The next one, although I could put a line in there, the points aren't all as close to that. Here, this correlation coefficient went down to only 0.4. So the more scattered around they are, the closer R is going to be to 0. So notice down here they said this is pretty close to 0. It doesn't look like a line at all. And in this case, of this very last one, there seems to be a pattern, but it's not linear. Okay, so just because R is close to 0 doesn't mean there's not a relationship. It just means there also could be that there's not a linear relationship. So let's check out these questions. These are probably more similar to what you're going to see on the exam. We have to match these. And I just took this off of page 200. So let's take a look. Where do you think, I like to look at these ones and say, do these all look positive? Do they all look, as I move to the right, that my points look like they're basically moving up to the right? I'd say yeah. All right, so which one looks the least scattered to you guys? Number 1, 2, 3, or 4? Okay, so that's the one I'm going to want to take to have as, let's see, which one? So it looks like D is going to match up with number 1. It is the least scattered. Okay. Now, which one is the next least scattered, would you say? You guys agree? All right. So that was the next closest one. I'd say that again, if I drew a line, I think it's going to be close to most of them. So would you put that one with A, B, or C? Okay, we're going to put 2 here. Okay, so of the last 2, which one looks more scattered, more random? Okay, number 2 to me looks the most scattered. So then I look at the 2 correlation coefficients I have left, and which one's closer to 0? 0.523 or 0.053? Which one's closer to 0? See, the 0.523. So I'm going to let that guy be 3, which leaves the 0.5 to be 4. Does that make sense, everybody? Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people get this one wrong on the test, and I think it's a fairly easy one. Okay, I have one more like this, but it sounds if you guys have it, then we'll just go on to the next question. Or do you want to look at the next one? Let's take a look. What do you think about that next one? Looks pretty much the same. This one would be what? This one would be the -1 because it's collinear. So I'd match that one up with the 1. Which one looks the next like more of a perfect line? 2. I'd say that one's the closest. So which one looks closer to -1? -9, -0.969 or -0.992. That one's closer to the -1, so I would leave that guy. Now we have a choice between these 2. Which one do you think is the -0.96, and which one do you think is the -0.96, the 3 or the 4? Oh, Robert, you put them all down. Okay, yeah, I'd say 4. This guy still looks pretty linear. It still looks like there's going to be a line in there, leaving this one to be the 3. So good? Okay, let's go on to that next page. Okay. As you're typing down, I'm just going to go on the top one, does the one, you said, does on the positive one. So let me move up a little bit. Hang on. Yes, if it was by itself, it wouldn't matter. I don't. It doesn't want to pan down for me. Here we go. You mean this dot down here? Dot down here? 3. This dot down here or the one that's up here? You said with the positive one, Johns, is that what's up here? Okay. In number 3, that's this one here. Are you talking about the dot that's on the bottom here? Oh, yeah, I don't see the cursor either. I apologize. We're talking about the dot that's down here. I still don't see it. Did I freeze up? All right, maybe I'm just going to have to change paint. Okay, the bottom dot, but if you move it up from it. I think the dots can be kind of wherever they are. Sometimes they're perfectly in line, sometimes they're not. It's more of a feel for most of the pictures. Okay, so I'm going to stop the sharing. I'm going to go back into our homework section to get into that mod 3. So let me minimize you guys. Why is it always where you need to be? Okay, so we're going to get into homework 4. Number 7. Okay, I had started this one earlier, and I just made sure I had the wrong answers, I should say. Okay, now this question is asking for you, and if we look back, they're just going to ask us to find the correlation coefficient, and then they're going to ask us to make a quick graph. There's 2 ways to do this. There's a very straightforward one that is just going to do those 2 things, and I'm going to do that one first. If you click on, open up in StatCrunch, and then if you were to click Stat and go down to Summary Stats, notice that under the column there is a correlation choice, and if you hit that and then press Compute, you will get your correlation coefficient. All right. Notice it's negative. Most of my students who get this wrong leave off the negative as if it's no big deal, and they even say it's just a negative sign. I'm like, well, it's the difference between losing money and making money, so actually it is a fairly big deal. I don't know about you guys. So the other thing they ask us is to make a quick sketch of the scatter plot. If you press Graph, go down to Scatter Plot, choose the explanatory variable, and then choose the response variable, and then press Compute, you get your scatter plot. Some students don't like this again because it's a little bit bigger than the other graph. We don't have all of the lines put in this one. And also, sometimes the scale that we offer in StatCrunch isn't the same that is offered in the MyMathLab. So let's just take a quick look at what we're being given here. Okay. Why is it? I want to move stuff today. Nothing wants. Of course, it gets so big. Okay, let's try that again. Hello, StatCrunch. Come on out. Okay. So here I'm going to look at my picture, and I'm going to say, well, that guy. And again, notice this. It goes from 0 to 10, and here it starts at 6. So you have to be on your toes. So we're going to have a big space that's empty, and then it looks like it goes kind of vertical, jumps up to the right, and another vertical. So we'd have to look vertical, jumps up right, and then it looks like, and I didn't even see that one originally, so it looks like B would have been my choice. If I'm not sure, I can go ahead and click on that, and then if I kind of move these over, I think I can see a little bit better how it would be. So that making it larger does help things out a little bit. Okay. All right. Then it asks for the correlation coefficient. And again, if you don't have the negative, you're in trouble. But I also want to show you this, that I just put in zeros for everything. The correct answer is negative 3.87, but there is a little bit of wiggle room, notice. You can be off by a little bit. So if you put in negative 3.88 or negative 3.86, you're still going to get it marked correct. So it's good to know that there's that little piece of like wiggle room. The next thing they're going to ask you to do is to determine whether there's a linear relation. And a lot of my students say, well, of course there is. You've got a correlation coefficient, and that's not enough. So in this case, we check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 pieces of data. We need to check this compared with our critical values. Because over time, some people will say, oh yeah, it looks like it's close enough to a line. Other people say, no, not close enough. So there had to be some sort of a rule of thumb that we could use. So they've come up with this table, this critical value table. Notice that it's given as a choice. And if you're not using it, there's something wrong. They wouldn't have put it in there unless you had to use it. Our correlation coefficient that we need to surpass is 0.878. So if it's not at least an 8.78, then we know we're going to have to say, well, you know, linear relationship isn't the way to go for this guy. So I just want to make sure I have enough room for this. Here we go. Put you down there. Okay. Because the correlation coefficient that we have is, and I'm just looking back here, it's negative. So I'm going to click on negative. And the absolute value of the correlation, what's the absolute value of this correlation coefficient? What's our absolute, what do we do for absolute value? What do we do with that? Do you guys not remember? Nobody's typing? Oh, thanks, John. That's okay. So in order to make it positive, yeah, some people will say they just get rid of the sign. You make it positive. Really, the idea is how far is this number from 0? So in this case, I'm just going to type in my 0.387. Okay. Now, is this number great? What did we say our critical value thing was for 5? 0.878. So I'm going to put the 0.878 here. That's my critical value. So is 0.387 greater than or not greater than the critical value? Well, not greater than. Once I put not greater than, then what that's telling me is there's just not the correlation coefficient, it's just not that strong to be linear. So I would be picking here that no linear relation exists between them. Okay, does everybody get that one? So this is a great type of question. I happen to get a negative and I happen to get a no. It could have been a positive and then a yes or something like that. So this is a great one to go back and hit your similar exercise for. Try it again. See if you're going to get that right. Let's see how we did. Okay. So that sounds all right with everybody? Number 8 was a similar one. In number 8, they ask us to sketch the picture. Again, if you open up in StatCrunch, you're going to get what you need. Let's see, we want graph, and then we want a scatter plot. Actually, in this one, I'm going to go do the other one. I'm going to do stat. I'm going to go down to regression. Simple linear, just to show you guys how you can do this one in another way. This one just has a lot of information on it, so it freaks some people out. So here what I get when I did the simple, when I went down to stat, regression, go over to simple linear, I get a lot of information here. One thing I get is right here in the middle, it's telling me the correlation coefficient, so that's kind of cool. I don't have to do it separately. It's going to give me the equation of the regression line, but it didn't ask for that just yet. And then it's also going to give me, if I go to the right here on the bottom, it gives me my scatter plot. It happens to have the regression line drawn in it, but that's okay. It still gives me my scatter plot. For this particular one, I think they ask us to add in some data. They ask us to add in a piece of data, and then you're supposed to notice that, hey, when I changed that data, it really made this correlation coefficient come up quite a bit. So just one moment. Okay, sorry. It's getting a little loud in the background here. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to look at my document here for a second. Let me see where we're at. Okay, so on the document here, I just put down, next page, I just put down that in order to do 7 and 8, I said which things you could click on. You could open in StatCrunch, use graphs, scatterplot, or summary stats and correlation. You could do that, or you can get this big picture that I showed you here. So 2 ways to go about that problem. Number 8 is the same. And then I think we go on to number 10 and number 11. Now number 10 and number 11 ask us a little bit of a different question, so I'm going to go get back there. Oh, I'm sorry, was everybody okay with number 8? Does anybody want me to go over any more of that? You want me to go over more of number 8? Yes, yes, yes? Okay, Scott and John, did you want me to go over it? Okay, thank you for clarifying. I appreciate it. Okay. These were old responses for whatever I had up here. Yeah, I just didn't put the last one. I thought we would do that one together. So, nothing. You guys did notice that the correlation coefficient got a lot stronger. So that was really what you were supposed to pick up from that. All right, number 10 does ask for us to determine the least square regression line. And what's neat about that is we've already kind of done this. So we're going to open this guy up in StatCrunch. This time, we're going to go stat, we're going to go down to regression, we're going to go over to simple linear. We're going to pick our x and we're going to pick the y. And I think this one asks for the sum of square stuff, so let's just see what we get here. Okay, so this one is asking us to give the equation. Most of the time we give equations of y equals mx plus b. I don't know if you guys remember that from high school. Mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So some people remember that, some people don't. Unfortunately, StatCrunch likes to give the y-intercept first. So notice here the y-intercept's coming first and then the slope. So you have to be smart enough to figure that out. But just in case you forgot that, if you look down just a little bit lower, oh, slope, here it is. Slope is 2.5405405. So when I come over here, the slope has to go right next to the x. Slope is what we call the coefficient of x. It multiplies x. Make sure, and a lot of people I know get this wrong because they put in a negative or forget the negative, or they round to the wrong number of places. And again, notice they do give a little bit of wiggle room in there. All right, now the second part is the y-intercept. Here's the y-intercept. It tells you right here, so there's no reason for you to get that one wrong. So is everybody okay with that? It's a pretty quick way to do that problem. You should get an easy peasy lemon squeezy. I think that's the phrase. All right, so if I come on down here now, they're asking me to make this graph. And if I click that button, wow, these points are all pretty close to the line. That tells me my correlation coefficient is probably pretty high. Let me look back there. Wow, my correlation coefficient is 0.99. That's telling me that those points are all pretty close to the line. So now I have to go back and decide which of these graphs I think looks the best. Now, this first one and the third one both pretty much look like their correlation coefficient is going to be 1. So I'm just not really going to pick one of those guys. I will put on this magnifying glass B, and I'd say, well, no, this kind of looks like it's above and then below. And this one looks up below, below, and then above. So this one almost looks like it's the mirror opposite of what it should be. So let's check that next one. Let's check D. And in D, lower, above, then below, below, above. Again, noticing that this starts at 0, where StatCrunch is starting at 4. So that tells me that D is going to be the answer that I want. All right, how do you guys feel about that? Did that go pretty quickly with the StatCrunch? All right. All right. Number 11 asks pretty much the same thing. And it also asks for the sum of square residuals. So let's just plow through this guy real fast. And again, watching the Veeds thing, I found out how to find that. I don't know why. I didn't think to look for it there. Regression, simple linear. X and then Y. Okay. Yep, no, that's all I need. Compute. All right, so let's check out. Let's see if I was able to do the slope okay. So the slope is the one that goes first, or the slope is the one that goes along with the x. Slope and x. Slippery slope there. Slope is negative 0.04. Y-intercept is the 112.2, so I'm all set there. Now, the sum of squares, I see the number 164.8, and if you come back here, the sum of the squares is in that second table. Check it out. It's the error of the, I think of the standard deviations there. It's the error here, it's the SS is the S sub x over at, I'm going to just say it's down here by the error. So it's the error down here, 164.8. 164.8. There you go. What I've done in the past is I've saved the residuals and I've gone and squared them and summed them up, but this is where we're going to get the exact same thing here. So that's pretty easy, isn't it? Now that you know where to look. All right. All right. 12, just real quickly, I think they said use this one just for the interpretation of slope. And what I had on my other sheet worked out well. Let me just, we're going to, I just want to show you guys how to do this next thing. So actually, I'm going to go into 13. We'll come back to 12 in a second. Okay, this one asks for a couple of different things. But what I'm looking for in number 13 is I want to be able to, on the bottom it says, use the regression equation to predict the head circumference and then compute the residual. So I just want to show you guys how you could do that one in StatCrunch. So I'm going to open it up the way I've done before. Regression, simple linear, height, head circumference here. Now they're asking me in this one, I believe they said for a child that's 25 inches tall. So here right underneath it says prediction of y, and I'm just going to type a 25 in there. Then I'm going to do a little overkill. I'm actually going to go down here where it says save, and it says save. I'm going to click on residuals, and then I'm also going to hit control and click on predicted values. These two will be saved in the table of values, where this prediction will come out of the answer, so to speak. Okay, so what I did was I clicked on prediction of y, and I clicked on the save modes here. I'm going to press compute. And sometimes it doesn't show up, so we got to show you. So here we go. Our equation is going to be y equals the slope plus the y-intercept. If I ask for the predicted value when x is 25, so if the child is 25 inches tall, we're expecting a head circumference to be about 17.06 inches around. So that's kind of cool that all that information is there. I also, if I come, I'm going to have to shrink it down here, guys. If I come over here to my table of values here, I have a whole lot of residuals. If the residual is positive, it tells me that this value, so a kid came in being 27.75 inches tall, head circumference of 17.7. I was only expecting the predicted values, what we're expecting, 17.58. This person came in with a 9. This is telling me that for this child that came in at 7.5, their observed value was above average. My residual is positive. It makes my observed value be above average. If my residual, so they had said 25 here. 25. So the person, this kid coming in who's 25 inches tall, measured this head circumference, it was 16.9. We were expecting is their predicted value. On average, we're expecting kids who are 25 inches tall to have a head circumference of 17.06. So that's below what they came in, was below what we were expecting. The below, good, it's great. It's different. That's just telling you what it's all. That's just all that is telling you. You can either put it on here or you can find the residual on here. So if they're asking for the residual, there's no reason why you can't just look it up on the chart the way I did there. How does that sound with everybody? Is that sounding okay? Okay. I hit the height and the head circumference. So John, I'm just going to go over what I did. So down here, I'm going to now, within the question, I looked in the question, it said predict what the head circumference would be for a child who's 25 inches tall. So for the prediction of y, here I'm going to put the 25 in. And then as I scroll down a little bit more, under where it says save, I clicked on residuals, and I clicked on the predicted value. Okay, and then when I press compute, that's where I got my table. I'm just going to press cancel, otherwise it comes up a second time. And they're going to give me a column of residuals and a column of predicted values. Okay, I'm happy to do that. All right, so I'm going to go back into looking at the document here. Let's go. Okay. I thought this is sort of how we could end this up. So here is the information that we had for number 10. I just pointed it out here again. And what we have is, it's always in the opposite format than what StatCrunch is, what my math would want to look down here. I'd want the slope down here to get the y-intercept up here. Oh my gosh, this is so finicky. And then I would want my y-intercept is right there. Okay. So we're just going to kind of move down from that a little bit. So everybody is okay with that kind of stuff, how to put that in there. The next part that I want to say is, when I am reviewing these things for my own classes, this interpretation piece drives me crazy because people just don't remember what to do. Okay, so the interpretation piece goes this way. As whatever x is, so let's get this pencil going again. Okay, so whatever x is, if x is, I think we had a problem with cans of cola. So I would say, as the number of cans of cola increases by 1 can of cola. So this part over here is going to be a unit. If it was the weight of a car, so I'd say as the weight of a car increases by 1 pound, or sometimes they might say an additional pound is added on, but these ones are always the same. So you tell me what the explanatory variable means, and you tell me what the unit of measure is. Then over here is going to be the y. So I think it was cans of soda and bone density. So I'd say As the number of cans of soda increases by 1, the bone density, and in this case I'm either going to put increase or I'm going to put decrease. If my value is positive, it's increase. If my value is negative, I'll put decrease. And then over here, it increases or decreases by the slope. But it's really the slope without a sign. So put down the sign, no sign. And then the last thing is units. Okay, so like for the cans of soda, as the number of cans of soda increases by 1, the bone density decreases by whatever the slope was, by 0.325 milligrams or whatever. I don't really even remember what the unit of measure was there. Okay, so is everybody okay with this one? That interpreting the slope piece really does mess some people up. Okay, yes, we're all good with that? All right. The second part is interpreting y. So what you found in Mod 4 was, for the most part, we kept saying, nope, it's not appropriate. Nope, it's not appropriate. I always ask the question, does 0 make sense? Can you talk about a child who is 0 inches tall? No, that doesn't make any sense. We always talk about the y-intercept is always when your x value is 0. So I'm not going to talk about a kid who's 0 inches tall. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to talk about a car that weighs 0 pounds. But when they start talking about absences in class or the cans of soda you drink, something like that, 0 does make sense. Somebody could have 0 absences. Somebody could drink 0 cans of soda. At that point, you want to interpret it. So if 0 makes sense, then you'd want to say, yes, I interpret the y-intercept as if a person drinks 0 cans of soda, their bone density on average would be, and I would state the y-intercept at that point. So does that make sense to everybody? That seems to be a little bit tricky. Okay. Then the next thing that I have on my little part is just, we just did this one for the residuals, but I like to have it written down. This is another thing that I probably write on more than half of the exam comments, is this particular piece. Residuals are equal to the observed value minus the predicted value. The observed value is always given to you. It's either given to you in the table or it would be stated for you in the problem. The predicted value is something that you will need to find. Either you find it using StatCrunch the way I described, or I have it listed here. In order to find a predicted value, what you would do is you would go ahead and plug in for x, whatever the x value happens to be. So I tried to make this look a little, I probably should have put this guy in a certain color too. So they would give you an x value and you just use your regression equation and you just plug in for x, as you can see I did there, and then you just get your value. Okay, and then the next part is, this does not want to go. To find the residual is always observed minus predicted, and I went and clicked on too much stuff. And in this case, my residual for this particular problem is positive. So that means that if I were to graph it, I would notice that this point would be above the line. So if it's positive, then the observed value is considered to be above average. If it's negative, the residual, then the observed value is considered to be below average. And that's about all you have to remember for that one. And then 13 is pretty much what we did. I explained already how to do that part in StatCrunch. So 13 and 14 are about the same. All right, so I took up a little bit more of your time than I had originally planned, but I hope it was well worth it. So I'm basically done with what I wanted to say. So let me open up the floor for you guys. Did you have any questions that you came in with and I didn't answer, you're still a little fuzzy on? There is one thing that I did forget to ask you guys to do, and that was to do the attendance form. So if you can just do that, take a moment or so. I see that's not, the attendance form is there on the right-hand side. We'll see if I can get that. Oh, it's like, I don't know why. Looks like it's frozen. All right, so let's see. Oh, good. All right, thanks, Scott. I hope that helps you out, and I hope that you are able to have no problem taking that second exam. Yep. Okay, Robert. If you hadn't started, I think this was a good stepping stone because now you know to look at that for the StatCrunch, and you are going to be looking for that kind of stuff that's going to help you out. Make sure you can go back and look at the recording from the webinar that was given on Tuesday. That was all about the Mod 4 stuff, so that'll help you out. Hey, John, I'm totally happy and psyched that you are totally prepped for this exam. That'd be great. Oh, good, Robert. I'm glad that you planned on it. Hey, Jenna, night too. If you have any other questions, let me know. Deanna, nothing else? Nothing else? Okay. All right. Well, if you guys have any questions, please feel free. I'm actually available a lot of times that during the day that I don't know what good times to put down for tutoring, but if you are interested in doing tutoring at a different time that's listed than other people, why don't you just shoot me an email, and if I have something free, I'd be happy to work with you guys. So if that's it, if there's no more questions, I am going to sign off. Please remember that we're here, all of us on the team, all your tutors and your instructors, we're here to help you out. We want to support you any way that we can, so just let us know what we can do for you, okay? All right, so good night, and good luck and good skill on that second exam. So I'm going to end the meeting now. I'm going to stop recording.